Mr. Speaker, over the last 8 months, the Premier and his cabinet have attempted many explanations for how the money raised by the extra 1% on the PST, which they've been collecting since July 1, how this money will be spent.
Illegally.
I would estimate that there have been about 50 different proposals. Tuesday, in the throne speech, the government provided their 51st option for spending the money. I asked the government, why should the latest option for spending the PST money be any more credible than any of the 50 which preceded it?
Speaker, $1.6 billion in the last 3 years on infrastructure in Manitoba, larger than was spent in the entire 11 years when the Conservatives were in government. The actions speak louder than words. We've made very significant investments in infrastructure. We've made very significant investments in flood protection. Go to the city of Brandon today, 1 in 300-year protection for the residential part of that community. That did not exist in 2011. We partnered with the city to bring that into play. That's just one concrete example. You can drive around Manitoba and see all the roads that have been paved. You can see the bridges that have been rebuilt. You can take a look at the new schools that have been brought into play in Manitoba, and new hospitals and personal care homes. Mr. Speaker, $1.6 billion on core infrastructure, more schools, more hospitals. Actions speak louder than words. We've got results. They've got rhetoric.
Mr. Speaker, I was looking for some sort of convincing demonstration that they were going to actually pick one and stay with it in terms of how they're going to spend the PST. You know, the government has promised that the PST dollars will be extra dollars for additional infrastructure in our province, and will not just replace general revenue dollars which were spent in previous years on infrastructure. Will the government, which has changed its mind so often already, provide this assurance again that the PST money will be new money for additional infrastructure spending, and that it won't just replace general revenue dollars, which will then be used elsewhere by this government?
We announced $5.5 billion in new infrastructure spending in Manitoba over the next 5 years, focused on core infrastructure. Manitobans told us that that's what they wanted the money to be allocated towards. That's where the money will be allocated. We made a very significant announcement yesterday with Highway 75 and the $215 million commitment to that. We've made additional commitments on Highway number 10, Highway number 9, Highway number 15, and of course Highway number 1 going east, Mr. Speaker. The results will show themselves as the money moves forward. As we ramp up this spending over the next 5 years, Mr. Speaker, we will see very significant investments which will generate jobs for young people, which will allow them to get the skills they need to participate in the economy, put down roots, have good-paying jobs to live here in Manitoba, Mr. Speaker.
But how many will be really new dollars and not just replacing what they were spending before? Mr. Speaker, it remains that under our current legislation, today, the Manitoba government should have decided how it was going to spend the money raised from increasing the PST by 1%, communicated this clearly to Manitobans, and then hold a referendum. And only after receiving a positive vote in the referendum would the PST be legally increased. Now that this government claims that this is their final decision, you know, sounds like a game show, doesn't it? Will the government hold the referendum they are required to hold under the law as it still exists today?
Speaker, $1.6 billion over the last 3 years, a $5.5 billion commitment going forward, thousands of new jobs with a role for the auditor to verify that the expenditure has occurred and that the money has been put in place to pay for it. Mr. Speaker, we'll be accountable to the people of Manitoba. We'll be accountable to the Auditor General. We'll build the economy and create new jobs for young people, but not at the expense of education and health care. We'll do that in such a way that we can continue to look after the elderly while skilling up young people and building a better Manitoba where even more people will want to come and live. We've seen 125,000 new people come to live in Manitoba. In the 90, 33,000 left. 125,000 people, highest participation rate in the economy that we've ever seen, third lowest unemployment rate in the country, beautiful assets all around the province, roads, schools, and hospitals. That's the future, Mr. Speaker.